Hello, hello. Buenas noches, buenas tardes, buenos días. Um, hey y'all, here we are, another Tuesday live. I'm very proud of myself. I'm being consistent. Um, so yeah, tonight we are going to talk about the last 5 years. Interestingly enough, 7 years ago today, I was on a plane headed to Kuwait. And I didn't think about it before I went, but that experience was low key a little life changing. And we'll talk about why. Um, First, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Adelia Borishade, aka Picky Girl Travels the World. I am a financial educator and coach, and this is my channel where we talk about money, finances, but we also talk about travel and we talk about living abroad. I left the United States 9 years ago. And if by chance the algorithm has served you this video because you too are considering a move abroad, if you are a Black woman, I just want to make sure that you know that this weekend is Exodus Summit 2025 More Move Abroad Money. Um, I don't know if you've ever heard of Exodus Summit, but it is the premier event for Black women who want to move abroad, who want to travel, who want to take a sabbatical. Um, you can get tickets. Where did I put that? You can get tickets at this link, tinyurl.com/Exodus Summit 2025. Why would you want to do that? Well, like I said, their theme this year is more move abroad money. Um, Money is often the thing that people think is the reason they can't move abroad. At this year's summit, there are going to be more than 20 speakers sharing ways that you can make money so that you can afford to live abroad, you can continue to live abroad, you can support yourself abroad. Hey, all right, she got her ticket. It is, I know this probably sounds a little like hyperbolic or whatever, but attending Exodus Summit is probably going to be life changing. Um, every year, this is their 6th year. Every year, they up the ante. They bring such incredible speakers. Um, I was just thinking, like, I'm going to be presenting, and I don't know if I include myself in that, but this year, because the theme is move abroad money, they got folks who are going to teach you how to trade and make trade stocks and make money, how to make money as a freelancer, how to make money on OnlyFans, how to make money uh, through like memberships, through teaching. Also, if you like a 9 to 5 job, they're going to be showing you like how to negotiate more money at your 9 to 5 job, how to like zhuzh up your LinkedIn. So there's going to be a little bit of something for everybody. But I just want to make sure that if there is a Black woman watching this that did not know that Exodus Summit starts Friday evening and runs through Monday, that it does. And if you were thinking about moving abroad at all, girl, you need to be there. Okay. Um, I do have one other announcement, and that is that registration is open for the Get Started Investing Challenge. I think, has it been 2 years since I've done that? I don't know. It's been a year or two since I have offered the challenge, and just letting y'all know, registration is open. All right. So who is this? Brown skin girl. This is my 3rd year. It's just it. Like I'm always in awe about Exodus Summit, like how much they step up their game every year. So, all right, y'all. Tonight we are going to talk about that it has been 5 years. Technically, it's a little bit more than 5 years because I retired from teaching in June 2025. But the thing that crossed my Facebook memories today was a post that I made as I was on a flight to go to Kuwait. And that was, I think that was a fairly life-changing experience and sort of like changed the direction of my life a little bit, that I thought today would be a great day to kind of look back on what it has been like these 5 years that I have been retired. Um, I am a 50-year-old woman who retired at 45. Uh, so, like, I guess you can say I fired at 45. If you don't know that acronym, FIRE, typically it stands for financial independence, retire early. And yes, that's technically what I did, but very much my brand of fire is financial independence, rest, and ease. That is what my plan was to do when I retired from teaching. Um, Technically, I am what they call post fire. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the different kinds of fire. There is lean fire, fat fire, barista fire, coast fire, and I think there's one more that's not coming to mind. I was a educator in the K-12 space. I worked teaching geography, history. Um, there was a point in my career where I was outside of the classroom, where I did a lot of instructional technology, technology integration, that kind of stuff. And so I did that in the public schools in Texas for 19 years. Um, and I left the US in 2016 when I was 41, and I took a job as the technology integration coordinator at a very small international school in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. I was in Honduras for a year, supposed to be there 2 years, but the way things worked out, I was only there for one. And then I took a grown up gap year uh, in great part due to Stephanie Perry, who is known as Vicarious on Instagram. She is one of the founders of Exodus Summit. I took a grown-up gap year in primarily I was based in Mexico City, although I did travel some. And then I went back to work in 2018, 7 years ago. 7 years ago today, I was on a flight to go to Kuwait. And that was my first job back after my grown-up gap year. I was in Kuwait for about 5 minutes. Technically, it was a little longer than that, but I was not there as long as I was supposed to be because that experience wasn't great. It was not great. And I don't know, I guess it gave me some clarity about like, oh no, I'm not down for this kind of nonsense, and made me refocus on like what kind of nonsense was I down for. So I was in Kuwait for about 5 minutes, and then I took a job in China um, at the beginning of 2019. China was a place that I had been to several times. It was not a place I wanted to live. It was not a place where I wanted to work. I ended up being in China for a year and a half. And between Kuwait and China, I was very clear on like, okay, I am done doing this. And when I left China, one of the last things we did as we had come out of COVID lockdown, the people I worked with surprised me with a little retirement, going away sort of thing. And I have not worked a normal people job since then. Um, so yeah, so let's talk about that. Um, I think one of the I took, and this story is not, I don't think, unique to me, but having that year off of work at, how old was I? 42, I think. I'm not doing the math in my head, so I'm guessing. I think I was 42. Having that year off, my employer restructured things. My employer in Honduras restructured things, and I did not like the new structure because part of me leaving the US was I wanted to create a life where my work life balance was that there actually was one, because I did not have one when I worked in the US. Because if you know anybody who works in public education, you know how hard they work, how many hours they work, and how little money they make. And when my employer presented this new structure to me, I was not interested in it. And instead of looking for another job, I decided to take some time off. And I joked around when I took that, when I said, okay, I'm going to hang out in Mexico and hang out with my dog. And I joked, like, this might be a year off, this might be a retirement. Never in a million years did I consider, until that point, possibly retiring at 42, because I was an underpaid school teacher. How in the hell was I going to make that work? And really, for me, leaving the US is the thing that kind of like supercharged my fire journey. Um, and given my cost of living, it kind of made me think, oh, well, let me go back and revisit my numbers. Let me look at how much money is in those accounts. And is that enough for me to retire? Technically, it wasn't. Um, but it wasn't, the number that was in those accounts wasn't so far off. Like in my head, I was like, oh, I could work a few more years, stash some cash, and I could stop doing this, which is in essence what I ended up doing. If y'all got questions, drop them in the chat and we will get them answered. All right, Chanel. Turns out I'm Coach Fire as well. Um, for a long time, I had questioned whether or not I would ever even be able to retire, let alone retire early. But I've said this, I don't know how many times on this channel, that there is something magical when a woman turns 40. And when I turned 40, I reevaluated everything about my life and was not really enthusiastic with the life I had been living, and decided to set out to start living the life that I wanted. And that would be a life of travel. That would be a life where, like, I didn't put up with nonsense and shenanigans. I think that's another reason my time in Kuwait was kind of traumatic, is because I had already promised myself I was not going to put up with that kind of stuff. And then I found myself in that situation. Um, so congratulations on that. Can I share a link for the investment challenge? Um, that's the other thing. That is why I'm sitting here right now talking to y'all from this apartment in Mexico City. While I did not make a lot of money as a teacher, I absolutely did not. I was able to start investing, and through very simple, low cost investments, I have been able to save enough that living my life here in Mexico and not working a job will be all right. So if you are somebody who is like, I don't know nothing about investing. And I feel like I need to because I too one day want to not have to work and want my money to work for me. Join us in the Get Started Investing Challenge. The URL is getstartedinvestingchallenge.com. Also, I think this challenge is really good for the folks who maybe through your series of jobs, you've been enrolled in the 401k, but you didn't really understand it, you didn't really deal with it, but they're taking money out of your check and putting it in there, and you're like, okay, I want to stop avoiding it. That's one of those things we talked about last week with Tori, avoiding opening those statements that come, but you want somebody to help you like make sense of that, figure out, is your 401k doing what it's supposed to do? Do you have the right kinds of things in it? The challenge is probably a good option for you as well. So answer that question. Um, Let's see. Uh, I'm gonna mark that one. Oh, I love this. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me mark it so I don't lose it. Okay. All right. Um, all right. So, as a young retiree, do you still contribute to your Roth IRA? I do not, although I could. And that's a personal choice, um, because that's the whole idea behind Co-Spire. The idea that you look at the money that you have set aside, that you have invested for that time when you don't want to work anymore, retirement. And it is at such a point that if you don't put anything else in and compounding does what it's supposed to, you'll have the number that you want. Um, there are a lot of folks who get caught up in, well, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough, so let me just try and get more. More is always better. Because I am leaning very heavily into the rest and ease part, um, I'm only focused on earning enough money to support this life right here. So I'm sure there are people who would say, "Oh, well, that's dumb. That's all that money and the growth that you're missing out on." But yes, a young retiree could still contribute, but I'm not focused on that. I'm just letting that money do what it needs to do, and I'm just focused on hanging out and talking to y'all, and sewing, going to bakery, stuff like that. All right, so let's talk about this. Teddy wants to know, what is your main source of income? Does YouTube pay well? Uh, YouTube pays some people well. Does it pay me well? Nah, nah. If I have a good month, YouTube will cover my month's expenses. But that's a lot of months that doesn't happen. Uh, I guess if I worked a little harder, maybe. But here's the thing about YouTube, you can't control how much money you make, particularly if you're making it from AdSense. Through like communities and merch and memberships and stuff like that, will probably make some more money. But as far as AdSense goes, you can't control that. So my main source of income is my coaching work. And this kind of brings us back to my time in Kuwait, because I credit my time, as horrible as it was, in Kuwait as giving me the clarity to realize that what I really wanted to do with my time and my skills was to help other women put themselves in a good financial situation. Because when I worked in Kuwait, like the day I landed and went to work, I had the thought, I should just go back to that apartment, grab my bags, and leave. Like I knew it was nonsense from the jump. But foolishly, I felt like, oh, maybe I should, like give them the benefit of the doubt, that sort of thing. They didn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. The shenanigans just got worse. Um, and so it didn't take me, I at the top of this, I told y'all I was there for 5 minutes. Literally, it did not take long. I think the benefit of the doubt lasted about a week and a half. And then I was like, nah, fam, I can't stay here. And so I started to plan my exit. I started to plan my escape. And while I was doing that, one of the thing that hit me was the other ladies who I worked with, as much as they were getting caught up in the nonsense and the shenanigans, they couldn't leave in the way that I could. And I thought about, well, what's the difference between them and me? And the difference was I had fuck you money and they didn't. And that is not a knock on them. That is not to disparage them. But um, I had put myself in a certain financial situation where I no longer had to deal with people, places, or jobs that weren't treating me right. And I was like, I'm no different than these women. Why do I have this advantage and they don't? And the difference is knowledge, the difference is education. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh, I want other women to have these options as well. So, as much as I hated being in Kuwait, I do credit it with helping me kind of pinpoint the way in which I wanted to help people. Um, so um, there are some things that I did right to set myself up to retire. Because when I retired, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I did not have any plan. I just knew I wasn't going to do that kind of work anymore. I had already, lived in 3, 4 different countries. I understood how low my expenses could be living abroad. And I knew that, okay, so I don't even have to get a big job. I don't have to do something that makes a lot of money. I just need to do enough that like I could get by. I mean, technically, if I didn't buy fabric in the way that I do, and if I did not travel the way that I do, I could probably live on $15,000 a year. But I do travel and I do buy ridiculous amounts of fabric. So I knew that like I felt comfortable taking that risk because I knew I could do something to make the money. And so when I quote unquote retired, I did not have a plan all mapped out. I was like, I'll figure it out. Um, and I did. And it took me a little while, like I tried things. And this was something else I did during my sabbatical as well. Because I wasn't sure when I had that grown up gap year, I wasn't sure I was going to go back to work. I did end up going back to work because I had a kid who needed to go to college and somebody had to pay for it. But had that not been the case, I don't know. I might have just been bumming here in Mexico City the whole time. There were some things that I did right to set myself up. Um, Before I left the US, I eliminated my debt. Is that a requirement? If you're watching this and you're like, I'm planning to move abroad, but I got some debt. Is that a requirement? No. but it does make life a lot easier for you if you're not having to service debt in addition to like make enough money to support yourself. So I eliminated my debt. I took jobs when I worked in China, when I worked in Kuwait, even when I worked in Honduras. And mind you, when I moved to Honduras, I took a 60% pay cut. I was able to increase my savings rate. I was saving about half of what I made. When I was in China, I probably got up to something like 80% of what I made, I was able to save. So increasing that gap between how much money I had coming in and how much money I had going out, like I want that gap to be big. What you don't, if you want to retire early, you don't want the amount of money you have coming in be the exact amount or more going out. That's not going to get you where you want to go. So I increase that gap between income and outgoing. Um, and I lowered my cost, like for my cost of living. That's how I was able to increase my savings rate. And had I not moved abroad, I still would have done that because I was still looking for a life where I did not have to work as hard. And in the United States, that probably meant I was going to have to take a job where I earned less. So I was already about like, okay, streamlining my expenses. And that is also true for investments. Um, I had a portfolio of low cost index funds. And that is how um, I know some people share numbers. Well, technically, I did share a number when who is that? CNBC when CNBC was like, "Hey, we want to make a video with you," and I was like, "Great!" And then they were like, "Send us all of your financial information." So I shared numbers then. I can tell you that my net worth from 3 years ago is at least double, more than double what it was then. So, and I did that by not doing anything fancy, low cost index funds. And the other thing that I did right was that I I didn't let the fact that I didn't know anybody who was like trying to retire early, or I didn't let the fact that I didn't know anybody trying to do this thing that I was wanting to do, I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let that like scare me off. I just was like, I will figure it out. And I did. Now, what did I do wrong? I made this mistake. Okay, Chanel says, I wish I'd start focusing more on my brokerage account so I could get out sooner. Most of mine is in a account. I can't touch it till I'm 59 and a half. That I would say is the biggest mistake that I made. And I don't beat myself up for it because I didn't know I was going to retire early. That wasn't part of the plan. Um, so I the thing I messed up on was not having a bigger chunk of my portfolio in a account I could touch at this age. Um, so like when I initially retired and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, I was living on cash savings. Um, but yeah, if I had it all to do over again, I would have definitely put a larger chunk of my portfolio in my taxable brokerage account because that is money you can touch whenever you want, as opposed to being 59 and a half. So, and because I don't have like a traditional job, the rule of 55 doesn't help me. I could take, I forget what the what the acronym is. There is still a way that you can touch the money in your retirement accounts early. Um, what is the word? It's basically you have to decide on an amount, and that you will take that amount out in perpetuity until there is no more money. So that there is a way that I could touch that money. I just haven't decided that that is something I want to do at this point. But I've got money in a Roth, and your contributions to a Roth IRA are always yours. So I can tap that money as well. But I think that's the big mistake, like that I feel like I have made. And that if I had it all, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the 72T. Um, if I had it to do over again, uh, that's the thing I would do differently. But because my living expenses, my actual living expenses, like, do I have to travel to live? Do I have to buy fabric to live? No, it makes life better, but I don't have to. If I just stuck with, the money I had to make, it is at a number where, given how much I want to work and how hard I care to work, like, it's in balance, in a way that I feel comfortable with. Okay, so let's see some more of your questions here. Um, at this moment, Dita, have I have a 401k. Is your class for me? Oh, I misread that. Yes. If you want to learn more about what this 401k is and how you're supposed to use it, and like think about the larger plan for, like, oh, when is it that I would like to stop working? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Um, When you started investing and saving money, did you have any inkling that you were going to retire from traditional work early? No. My concern was, will I be able to retire ever? I did a video on this maybe 3 years ago. It's linked in the description. If y'all want, like, tonight, I'm giving you the condensed version because we're going to go to the movies in a little bit. But if you want the long version, I've linked that video in the description. But no, I had no inkling that I was going to retire early. My concern was, will I be able to retire? Because as a public school teacher, I would hear people talk about the pension, but at the time, I didn't really understand it. And again, when I turned 40, and I was like, this is not the life I want to be leading. And I got very clear on what the life was that I wanted. And I realized that working that job was not part of it. And I was trying to figure out, okay, so when can I officially retire? Um, it would have been 53. Yeah, probably about 53, 54. And I was like, oh, hell no. There's no way I could keep doing this until then. And so I was like, okay, we got to figure out something else that I can do and not do this kind of work. So again, I wasn't even thinking about retiring. I was just thinking about, I needed to work less intensely. The idea of possible retiring early did not happen for me until I had already left the US. And I looked at, well, if my expenses are going to be this, how much money would I need to have invested to make this possible? And that number was a lot smaller than I thought. Um, I know there are people like Susie Orman and other folks who will tell you that you need millions of dollars. I do not believe that. Now, with the way things are going in the US, things are more expensive. Um, particularly if you envision living life, you know, I'm not going to say outside of community, but in the way that we've kind of been tricked, like, oh, only focus on your nuclear family and that sort of thing. Like, I think you could still retire on a lot less than $1 million in the US, but it would look different, I think, than they tell you. Like, it might involve some co-living and things like that, which, you know, I've said this before. Uh, I feel like in the US, if you are outside of college and you live with another person that is not a romantic partner, you're often deemed as like a failure or defective or what have you. And if we look at all these other societies, they live that way. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. Let's see. There was another question here. Um, yeah, the healthcare situation is bad. And given the reason why the US government is currently shut down, that the Republicans want to allow the ACA credits to expire. And so everybody who's getting healthcare there will see ridiculous increases in their rates. Like, I don't know how the individual person solves for that when the system is designed to work against you, and there is no interest. You know, I we may, unfortunately, and I've seen several things online about this, that given the healthcare situation, and let's say this works out where everybody's premiums does go up, what did they call it? Healthcare spiral. That basically folks who are, because health insurance works when healthy people pay into the system. If health insurance is only held by the people who actually need to use it, it's not profitable. So they need healthy people to be in it. But if the rates go, they skyrocket, healthy people will opt out and just say, hey, I'm just going to gamble. And then you've got this expensive healthcare spread amongst the cost spread amongst fewer people. Prices will go up again. And it's not sustainable. Medical tourism would be an option for those who have options, those who have the money and the ability to travel. Um, if this plays out like worst case scenario, I don't know how you can have like a quote unquote developed country and have it where people cannot access healthcare. Not because in the US, we're looking at a situation not only where they cannot afford it, but that in a lot of places, the healthcare providers will no longer exist because of various policies of this administration. So, yeah, that definitely would figure into it. Let's see, where was the other question? Okay. We answered that. Uh, Pay taxes today, contribute to your brokerage account, or tomorrow in a 401k. I'm leaning toward paying them now and living off the dividends. I say we can't, I'm of the mind, we don't know the future. Uh, because a lot of the argument for, hey, invest as much as you can in your 401k, that's pre-tax money, you will eventually pay taxes, pay income taxes when you draw it out. The idea being that you are in a higher tax bracket now when you are earning the money than you will be when you are actually needing to use the money. Maybe, but given the situation we're looking at now, the idea that the federal government would increase the tax rate, I mean, technically they are going up. Technically they are going up. So in the world we live in now, I don't know. It's about what you believe, because none of us can know. So the people who believe they will pay fewer taxes when they are older because their income will be lower, they are very like put as much in the 401k as possible. But if you think that income taxes are going to increase, it would make sense to pay taxes now, particularly for those of you who are at the beginning of your career and probably earning less than you will in the future, hopefully. Putting money in a Roth account makes more sense because, in theory, you are at probably the lowest tax rate you will have in your life. Because I feel like we can't know, I say split it. Try and have a little money pre-tax, a little money post-tax. That way, either way works out. You don't lose as big as if you all put all your money in one pile. That's my thought. And remember, I am just a financial educator. I am not certified. I am not licensed to give anybody financial advice. Everything you hear here is for entertainment value only. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Um, when does one stop saving and investing for retirement? That is a great question. Um, the answer should be when you have enough money to support the lifestyle you think you're going to have. And this is so this is why I'm always encouraging folks like to really get concrete about the life they envision. Because when it's very abstract, people say like, oh, I can't wait till I retire and I'm going to travel. But they've not really thought about like, oh, okay, how often am I going to travel? Um, where am I going to be traveling from? Like, how much am I looking to spend on travel? At what level am I wanting to travel? Do I imagine myself at 5-star hotels all the time? If that is the case and that is the life you want, you're going to need to save and invest more. So that's why you get those people on like Fat Fire and Jumbo Fire, because they are, their expenses are going to be $100,000-$200,000 a year. In my head, that never made sense to me because I never made that money while I was working. So I was like, why the hell would I be spending that kind of money when I'm retired? So when you think about the life that you will be living when you are retired, and you estimate, okay, this is what I think that will cost. The quick and dirty math is multiply that by 25. Do you have that invested? If you do, technically, you don't have to keep putting money in. That's sort of where the Coast Fire and the Barista Fire come in. And because when your money is invested, it's not like you retire and you say, okay, let me pull all of my money out. No, you keep your money invested. You keep the bulk of it invested so that it can continue to grow, because inflation is still going to be a thing. And so you don't want the money you have set aside to stop growing. So you're going to want to keep it invested, but you when you figured out like, oh, there's enough money there doing what it needs to do so that I can live the life I want. There are, like in the fire movement, there are folks who find it very early and in the very beginning of their career, they are, they've closed that they've widened that gap. They've increased their savings rate really high and they're putting lots of money away. And then you talk to them in 5 years and they're like, I'm just working now. I'm not like uber saving, because they're just letting the money grow. So it's going to depend on how much money do you need to live the life that you want when you stop working. That's what's going to determine it. I know someone who is like, I cannot stop working until I have 15 million invested. Now, that ain't my life. But for the life that they envision, for the people they feel like they're going to have to support economically, that number makes sense for them. Um, There was something I was gonna say, and then it went away. Maybe it'll come back. Who knows? Um, is the investment challenge only for new investors? Not necessarily, but I will tell you, if you are already investing and you feel very comfortable about buying and selling and choosing investments, it's probably not for you, because I'm I'm more in the business of helping people become educated consumers. I'm not going to teach you the ins and outs of a particular kind of strategy. Um, mm, yeah, like I'm not going to teach you about like trading and buying options. So if you already invest, but that's where you need to go next, that's not me. Uh, Money Coach Malika might be who you want to talk to. So there are people who take the challenge, who have had their own accounts, who still get something from it. But if you feel like, oh, I'm ready for options, I'm ready for futures, I'm ready for trading, this is not for you. Uh, let's see. Um, how are we feeling about the decline of the US dollar right now? We're not loving it. Um, which is another reason why you want to make sure that your money is working for you and not just sitting there. Because particularly if you are outside of the US, not only do you have to deal with inflation, you also have to deal with currency fluctuations. And again, that's not something you can forecast exactly and know this is what the dollar will do against the peso or what have you. But you want to build yourself a cushion so that as things get more expensive, you can maintain the level of a life that you want. Um, okay, hold on. I have I have about 13 minutes and then I got to get out of here. So I'm trying to mark y'all's questions and get them answered. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, I did, like, so we talked about the things that I did right and the things that I have done wrong, and I think this whole channel is kind of a testament to what have I been doing in my early retirement. I work literally as little as possible. I work to, keep the lights on, but I'm not trying to extend myself significantly. Um, Traveling, uh, when you think about it, the last 5 years, I've traveled quite a bit. Uh, Asia, no, I haven't been back to Asia since 2020. That's right. But Europe, Africa, uh, South America, Central America, um, started this business helping women with their money, started another business. Ivana Robinson and I run Reclaim, where again, it's an extension of the same work that I'm doing here. It's helping women, reclaim their lives in the way that I was able to reclaim mine. Um, and right now, I'm very heavily leaning into the rest and ease part of that. The movie I'm gonna see one something at a time with Tiana Taylor and Regina. That's what we're gonna go see. And we're trying to see it while it still has while it's still in English. But where I live is very close to multiple movie theaters, so that part I lucked up on. Okay, we answered that. Answered that. Um, okay. What are your thoughts on selling property to fund a move abroad versus renting it out? So interesting. You should ask this because I did a video. I don't understand time, so maybe it was earlier this year, or maybe it was the end of last year. Uh, rent, buy, or I mean, sell or sell or keep the house. Um, I interviewed several ladies. Some of them rented out as a means to fund their life abroad. Others sold theirs and used that cash to fund their life abroad. I think it's really going to come down to how do you envision your life? I have been a landlord and I absolutely hated it. And I know you can get management services. Uh, and even that, I didn't want to deal with that. That's me personally. But uh, I think it all depends. Particularly, I know people who have property in California and property in New York City. And as long as they think there might be a chance that they would return there, they're going to keep those properties because the market is so expensive that they would never ever be able to afford a property again. So renting it out was the right option for them. You have to think about who you are. Do you want to still be bothered with it? Could it, or it depends. It depends. For me, that was not the right option, and I sold all of my real estate. Um, how did you decide what brokerage to use for your Roth IRA? I've told this story on this channel before. Literally, I used to have an account at Vanguard. I had a 403B with Vanguard, and I was going to open my Roth IRA there. And Vanguard was like, great. And until your account reaches this amount, we're going to charge you this fee. It might have been quarterly, it might have been annually, but that fee hurt my feelings. It wasn't even a lot of money, but it was just the thought of having to pay them to put my money there. I didn't like that. And so I was Googling free Roth IRA and ended up with Fidelity. And Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, E-Trade, those major discount brokers, they're all pretty good. But that is how I chose. I Like I mentioned before, keeping costs low. Um, that's kind of my philosophy, particularly when it comes to financial institutions, because I should not have to pay for the privilege of my money being there. And so that is how I ended up choosing what I chose. But the Roth IRA account is going to work the same no matter where it is. Now, I will caution people about avoiding full service brokerages like Goldman Sachs, or what's the one, Edward Jones, because their fees are really, really high. And I don't know that you get anything for those fees. Um, in this current climate, do you think it is still possible to find jobs abroad similar to teaching? I'm talking jobs that are funded by federal and global programs. Federal, like US federal government, I don't know about that, given how things are going. But global programs, I think so. Who is it? Like Idealista, I think is the website where you can find a lot of jobs. UN, various NGOs. I think those jobs will continue to exist. Me personally, because that's one of the things I considered when it was time for me to leave Honduras and figure out what would I do. I did consider applying for the State Department because that was something I had considered previously. And that was technically during the first Trump administration. And I could not bring myself to do it because when you work for the State Department, you have to like support what the president is saying. And I couldn't bring myself to do that. So I would steer clear of things that are funded by the US government internationally, because we seem to be in a period where we are withdrawing into ourselves and becoming more isolationist. So I don't see support for those things continuing. Um, um, is it difficult to figure out when to move money and also when to take a profit? How do you go about that? Um, I this is probably going to sound cuckoo, but I'm kind of like on vibes. I think about like how do I feel about this? How does this feel? Uh, there are people who will tell you, well, this is the right way to do it. I don't believe that there is one right way or wrong way. Um, Now, moving money, you can set, like some people have Wise and they have like a US dollar account. Then Wise will let you open an account so that you can hold other currency. And so people will set an alert in Wise to let them know when the exchange rate gets to this point, and um, then they will convert money over. That's great. Like people were talking about that a couple years ago when the peso, which was normally 20 pesos to $1, was down to 16. Well, if you're hoping for 18, I don't know that alert's going to do you any good. It's you make the best choice that you can, and then don't beat yourself up about it because you're not psychic. Like right now, the peso is about 18.3 per $1. In January, it was still 20. Should I have changed over a bunch of money in January? Yeah, I did. I should have, but I didn't. So technically, my money is now worth less in Mexico than it was before. I could move some money over now, but I can't beat myself up because I didn't know that the rate was going to drop this much. So I do have a, what do you call it? An alert. I get an email every day of what the rate is. And so if I see the rate trending up, uh, sometimes I will go and convert money, but I don't know that there is a fixed answer. I think you got to just do what feels right. Um, uh, Nicole, Cherry, Cherie, a place to meet other folks interested in a lot of travel and possibly moving. Exodus Summit. ExodusSummit.com/community. They've got a community of thousands of Black women who are looking to do just that. Okay, let's see. Were there any other questions that we had time to answer? I think I hit most of them. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead to the movies. Y'all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Remember that if you need to figure out how to make more money so that you can move abroad, Exodus Summit starts Friday evening. Um, there is something for people with 9-to-5 jobs, something with people who want to work for themselves, something for people like me who don't want to work at all. There is something for everybody. Get your ticket. And the investing challenge starts on November 2nd. And you can get the details of the challenge on the website. get started investing challenge.com. And I'll see a lot of y'all hopefully Friday night at Exodus Summit. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.